Hello friends, this is Youheum, and today I'll be sharing why I chose to walk the path of extreme minimalism and furniture-free living, and I will also be sharing the emotional steps it took to arrive in this present moment. I do not believe that minimalism looks the same for everyone, and I'm aware that we all are walking a unique path. That's why I don't criticize other people for being unique and different. There is a deeper meaning to the choices that we make in our lives. So even if you are not a minimalist, and even if you're not emotionally healthy, and even if we don't have the same mindset, I accept you no matter what. Share with me what you are unfolding right now. What made you choose this path? Any books you read, motivational speakers that you were influenced by, any podcasts that you listened to, or did it come naturally to you? Before accepting simplicity as a way of being, as a way of self-expression, and as a way of survival, I used to focus my energy, my time, space, and other resources on mindless accumulation and mindless consumption. And after I made the switch to minimalism, and after I embraced simplicity as a default way of being, as a natural way of being, I started to spend my resources more on experiences and nourishing activities. So I started to incorporate practices like yoga on a daily basis, and I started to meditate so that I can have more awareness of how I feel and have more awareness of what I am thinking most of the time. And I also start to incorporate practices like tapping, which is emotional freedom technique, and the healing code to heal my inner self. The biggest physical change that happened to me in my life that's actually connected to emotional things as well is having more energy and just more livelihood, because I'm not focusing on unproductive activities. So I feel more energy, more eagerness to jump into challenges, to do more things that make me happy, because I don't feel drained or exhausted or burnt out at the end of the day. Most of you know that I prefer natural colors and calm vibes, like the natural linen clothes that I often wear, and the things I choose to invite in my space, and how I like to practice noble silence more than listening to music. And this is mainly because I'm a highly sensitive person who is often triggered by external stimulation. And when I'm exposed to visual clutter, bright colors, loud noise, and busy crowds, it triggers symptoms like stress, adrenal fatigue, and my anxiety attacks. And if you also find it difficult to thrive in a fast-paced, chaotic, and stimulating environment, or if you already know that you are an HSP, feel free to give me a shout out in the comments below. In the past, I didn't know that this was a part of my natural self, and I continued to ignore my physical symptoms, my physical and emotional discomfort when I felt overstimulated, when I felt stressed out, that there was too many distractions. And now I feel like I don't have to be ashamed of this part of myself, because that too is me, and that too is something that I have to accept and live with, which means embracing it, surrendering it to it, and forgiving myself for feeling this way. So now I don't hide myself. I don't pretend like I like to be in overcrowded places, in places where there's loud noise, in places there's a lot of visual stimulation like bright colors and bright lights that's flashing. So I try to just be with myself in a place where I can be calm and peaceful instead of being so stressed out constantly. And I really don't mind being called drab or boring, or having my space perceived as sanitized. because that is exactly what I like, and that is exactly who I am right now. And I feel like I can embrace the fact that I am attracted to less stimulation, and that I need to pay attention and be mindful of my sensory. For me, I feel like there is not much distinction between extreme minimalism and minimalism, even though I call myself an extreme minimalist, because what is extreme to some people may not be extreme to others. And I feel like it all comes down to how we perceive things, how we understand things, and that's all dependent on our mindset, our cultural background. But I do use the word extreme, like I just said, for the sake of convenience to share my furniture-free life. And since the word minimalism is subjective, I find it tricky to distinguish between extreme minimalism and minimalism, because everybody has a different unfolding and everyone has a different way of explaining it and expressing it. So my focus is not on separating myself from other practitioners in this community or from the minimalism movement. And I don't practice furniture-free living just to use this label to wow others, to bring that shock effect. My intention in going furniture-free is on aligning with my ancestor, my roots, because as a Korean person, it's natural for me to live without a lot of furniture, or even live without any furniture, because I'm so used to sitting on the floor, eating on the floor, wiping the floor by hand, doing laundry by hand, and just living a simple lifestyle. Another reason behind my decision to go furniture-free is so that I can practice nutritious movement, which is founded by Katie Bowman, and she teaches about natural movement that nourishes the body in a gentle way. And this can include yoga, active sitting, stretching, long-distance walking in nature, and a way of non-sedentary living. And since sustainability is also a big part of my life, I try to reduce chemicals like flame retardants, mold repellents, and chemical dyes that are commonly sprayed on furniture. And even though I may not be 100% chemical-free, 100% toxin-free, or eco-friendly, I don't mind trying my best to spread compassion to this earth and trying my best to align with natural living. In my case, after being a shopaholic for so many years, and for so many years not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, I wanted to break out of that cycle, and I wanted to break out of that state of being confused and being lost. I wanted to stop faking happiness, stop faking abundance, and I wanted to be honest and true, authentic with my friends, my family, and my loved ones. And most importantly, I want to know my true needs, my inner desires, my life goals, and I wanted to find my own identity, my own purpose that was not influenced by the expectations of other people and the expectations of the society and my surrounding. This means ditching the beauty ideal, also standards of human perfection, and my desire to fit into a culture that is so very different from my own Korean background. What I was seeking at that point in my life was not limited to just physical transformation or the pursuit of a simple aesthetic, but I wanted to transform my inner self, and I wanted to overcome my fear, insecurities, anxiety attacks, and the overall feeling of not being good enough to be loved. And to arrive at this point of wanting change and a better way of living was the most difficult challenge in my life. Rising to this stage of feeling so exhausted, overwhelmed, burnt out, and angry at myself in this society took so many years because I was constantly suppressing negative emotions. But without the courage to face the darkness within me, then I would never have the opportunity to heal the scars, to heal the pain within me, and I will never be able to overcome the challenges that I'm facing. I didn't want to admit that I was unhappy deep down inside, and I didn't want to admit that I was using temporary distractions like shopping to run away from my vulnerabilities. I didn't want to admit that everything I had, everything I was just to coerce other people to like me, to accept me, to manipulate them into supporting me and loving me. I didn't want to admit the guilty part of myself, the darkness within me, the vainness within me that believed that having all these things meant that I was a better person, who was rich, who was deserving of praise and admiration. In my low self-esteem stage, I was lacking self-confidence, I was feeling insecure, and I used shopping as a way to escape the painful part of my life. This eventually led me to the guilt and shame stage, where I felt guilty that I hit rock bottom and I felt shameful of my addiction and mindlessness. And the biggest realization I had during this stage was knowing that I've constantly told myself that I was worthless, that I was not deserving of love, of appreciation. And this was followed by my apathy stage, where I identified myself more as a victim of consumerism, as a victim of my addiction. So I continued to shop even when I wanted to mentally resist my cravings, my addiction. In the stage of anger, I started to get fired up about making changes, mainly because I was so frustrated and angry for the poor decisions that I've made in my life. And somehow I kind of wanted to undo my past wrongdoings by taking forceful actions. And that motivated me to discard and declutter everything all at once without listening to my emotional needs with gentleness and forgiveness. And on top of that, I wanted to somehow make somebody or something responsible for my pain and suffering. So I started to blame capitalism, materialism, consumerism, and I even blamed the money system for making me so miserable. But I didn't really take into account the fact that I was the one who was making the poor decisions. I was in control of my own happiness, and there is nobody or nothing external that can cause me misery unless I allow it to do so. So all of this led me to the courage stage, where I didn't feel uncomfortable or fearful of letting go, and I started to accept minimalist and maximalists for who they are, and I didn't want to defend or argue or be angry at other people for being different from who I am. I didn't force myself to change, because it was actually nourishing to slowly unfold my journey, one step at a time. So I was starting to accept minimalism as more of a personal development journey that led to happiness in other areas of my life. So this was when I started to read more books on letting go, and was eventually introduced to the work of Japanese minimalist Umio Sasaki, which I identified as an extreme version of minimalism. And I didn't feel fearful of taking my journey to the next level and diving into this kind of lifestyle. And finally, in the present moment, I identify with the neutrality stage, where I feel content with the present moment, and I feel pretty flexible and open to the changes that are gonna come in the future. So I don't strive to be a perfect minimalist guru, or I don't strive to show off how many things I have, how many less things I have compared to other minimalists. I simply focus on sharing my journey and spreading the message that simplicity can also be a way of living can also be a way of survival. So I think that neutrality is where I can finally align with my authentic self, where I'm not easily swayed by the standards of other people. But I know that neutrality and courage can also be experienced in smaller doses during the shame and the guilt and the anger stage. So I feel like they're very connected, and they kind of feed off of each other and they support each other, so that I can arrive at the stage of neutrality and courage at the end. For me, I discovered minimalism when I allowed my natural self to be expressed fully. I tapped into my inner needs, wants, and desires after running away from myself for so long. And that's why I don't force or strive myself to be a minimalist. Simplicity to me is an act of uncovering what has been lost and forgotten. To me, it is an unfolding. It is an everyday practice. It is a process. It is a way of survival. It is a way of being. And it is a way of enjoying my life, the time that I have on this earth. And I feel deep gratitude that this universe has given me this miracle. And I'm happy to be able to share this moment with you, and to be able to share the suffering that I have been through and the happiness that is unfolding in my life in the present moment. I hope that I was useful in some way. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks again for being here, my friends, and I hope to see you again soon.